There is despair in LGBTQ plus community as the Nebraska city rescinds the Fairness Ordinance. Watch this story.
The win is where we successfully bring this into reality. Having a goal of anything short of that is about hitting a milestone and not about long-lasting change and protection for the LGBTQ plus community in the next generation. We will win this when we have the ability and resources to counteract the lies and scare tactics from those whose actions intentionally or unintentionally create lifelong harm. I remember growing up gay and being afraid to tell anyone, and being even more afraid that I was going to spend an eternity in hell because of how I was born. I used to pray to God to undo my birth because not even being born seemed like the best outcome in comparison to what the messages and narrative was all around me about what my destiny was going to be. Pain, torture, and suffering without end. I received these messages by adults, leaders, and the community around me, not by my own relationship with God. I was lucky. I grew older. I was able to create a life of love, acceptance, and family. I made it. I barely made it, but I was one of the lucky ones. I made it, but there's many of us who do not, and there are many of us who still will not, that will struggle with the lies and scare tactics around them. There are many of us who will not make it. If we do not have the resources or ability to fight these lies and scare tactics very similar to what we grew up with, then we add to the creation of lifelong harm, either intentionally or unintentionally. We won't be reckless. We will continue to push forward equality while shielding our community from ongoing attacks on freedom. We will tell the transgender, non-binary community that their voices matter. The LGBT community, our city, and this council will not give up the fight towards full equality. This is just the next step, till that one beautiful day when these protections become codified in law and when all LGBTQ plus adults and kids see this world as equally theirs.
The city of Lincoln, Nebraska no longer has a Fairness Act in their city code after a city council meeting. The council had passed the ordinance 5-0 in February, but some of the council members felt that it would not hold up in the ballots. Sändra Washington, who introduced the bill, said, quote, "The journey toward the promise was never guaranteed to be easy or short or convenient. To the upcoming generations, to the youth of our city, I want you to know I see you. I have been where you stand now, and I promise you it will get better." Council member Tom Beckius and James Michael Bowers, who are both openly gay, both voted to rescind the ordinance because they did not feel that its supporters were prepared to win at the ballot box.
Wow. This was a really complicated story for me to wrap my head around. I had to read it 3 times to understand what was going on, because it seems like the gay people, the LGBT people, were the ones that had control over whether this was put on the ballot, and they decided to take it off, in addition to a couple other people. And it seemed as if there was a death of a transgendered person, somebody who took their own life, and they felt like because I guess the conservatives named that bill the transgender bathroom bill, that was creating undue stress. Just like you were saying, something is going on, that the attacks are ramping up on transgendered people. So I think their intent was to take it off the ballot to cool things off, because they didn't think it was going to pass anyways, but to find the right timing for it.
I think your summary is exactly accurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. It's interesting to me, first, we're sitting here in Florida. We don't frequently talk about Nebraska at Queer News Tonight. But in terms of context, if Miami in Florida, in Nebraska, that is Omaha. Then there is Tampa in Florida, and that is Lincoln. Mm-hmm. This is a major metropolitan city by Nebraska standards. It's Tampa for Nebraska. The idea that there will not be a fairness ordinance in a major metropolitan American city, we understand, rural Alabama, but this is a major metropolitan city. That's first. And then second, that members of the city commission that are gay feeling like we can't do this because of the backlash that will take place and the possible defeat at the ballot to support the LGBTQ community is equally shocking. Because what they're saying is Fort Lauderdale, Tampa voters, you're not going to support the LGBTQ community, and so therefore we're not going to put it in front of you because we don't want to suffer the defeat. Very sad to be gay in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, it was
Very sad.
that last quote where she promises it'll get better. There was definitely a time when that was believable and in a path that we were on where that was true. And it just seems like we're in a time right now where there's a level of uncertainty behind it'll get better. And I have to wonder what the people that are listening to their local politicians tell them that are really thinking and whether or not they're believing.
And our gay politicians in
Yeah.
Lincoln, Nebraska.
We've mentioned this many times, and I think that our own community is, a lot of these things are falling on deaf ears. To hear that we have an LGBTQ political leader in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the reason why we need more voices like that in all levels of government is very apparent. And this person telling that powerful story, first of all, kudos. Thank you for sharing your story. It was very moving, and that is a story that probably many of us here or have friends or family can all share that same story, and we need to have more leaders like that.
One of the council members had also mentioned that fairness should already be included in the 2020 Supreme Court decision, so that they were saying that maybe it's not even necessary to have this because those protections still exist. But who knows if they're just pandering to be reelected or however that works out.
And one clarity, we've had much argument at Queer News tonight. We at It's Happening Out had a log cabin Republican, a prominent log cabin Republican, and that was their argument against the Equality Act. It's not necessary because the 1960s Act did the exact same thing. It repeatedly has been explained that it does not protect you in the way that the Equality Act was. So when they make that suggestion, they really are stalling the idea that we want to provide the kind of equality protections that are really clearly needed. And that's exactly what's going on in Lincoln, Nebraska. That's why the Equality Act is required and necessary. There's no chance of it passing, but that's why it's required.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+